Thank you.
Erev Tov, everyone. This week's Parsha Balotcha begins the narrative of the incidents that occurred to Klal Yisrael in the desert of Sinai, the 38 years of events that brought about the destruction of that generation and the necessity to create a new generation that would somehow advance and come to the land of Israel. So the Balotcha begins the narrative of descent of the Jewish people of that time. Until now, even though there was an ego, and even though there were complaints about water and bread, but on the whole, it was an ascent. They were going up, left Egypt. They made war on Amalek. They came to Sinai and they said, Na'aseh v'nishma. They were told to build a Mishkan. They contributed all of the necessary funds and talent to build the Mishkan. And they set up the Kahuna. They set up the Levim. So on the whole, the first portion here is positive. The graph, so to speak, is upward. But from now until the end of the Chumash Bamidbar, the reverse will be true. There will be a continual series of unfortunate events that lead to the destruction of that generation. And we see that in Tehillim, Arboim Shona Akut Bedor. For 40 years, I struggled with that generation. They didn't get it. Well, Yodu Drochai, they didn't know my ways. It isn't that they were sinners, that they violated certain precepts. They didn't understand the whole picture. There are people that their hearts are lost. They did not have my vision. We were not on the same page. And therefore, that generation would find it impossible to get out of the Midbar and come to Eretz Yisrael. So it begins in this week's Parsha. We read in the Parsha, Moshe says, Nosim anachnu el hamokom. We're on the way. Moshe is full of enthusiasm. He has this long list of accomplishments, took them out of Egypt, saved them from the Egyptians, defeated Amalek, he's feeding them in the desert. They have water. They accept the Torah. They build the Mishkan. They tribes are counted, everybody, Yishal Diglo, Yishal Machaneu. So he has this long list of positive accomplishments, good things that have happened. And now in his enthusiasm, Moshe says, Nosim anachnu el hamakom. We're now traveling to the place that the Lord promised us. We're going home. We're only 3 days away. We have to change flights in Montreal, but we're only 3 days away. And we're going. We saw before the order of the march was established, and they would follow the flags, and they had leadership of every tribe. Something's missing. Starts to go wrong. So the first incident which we have in this week's Parsha of Aloscha is the story about Yitro. Here he's not called Yitro, he's called Chovov. The Medrash says, Rashi quotes it a few times, that he had 7 names. What does it mean that a person has 7 names? Well, was it simply put, somehow he had 7 names. Irving Bunim had a famous quip anecdote that he would say is that he attended a Brit and the Moel bent over and said, "What's the boy's name?" And he said, Avrom Yitzchak Yaakov Moshe Aaron David Shlomo. So the Moel said, "You have such a name?" So the father said, "Listen, money we don't have. He looks like me, he's not going to be handsome. Let him at least have a name. Let him have a lot of names." So Yisro had a lot of names. So Chazal say because Yisro went through many stages in life. And when you go through many stages in life, you become a different person every time. I mean, no one is what they were when they were 15 years old. Thank God. So that was your name then. But that's not who you are now. And that's not who you are in different circumstances. So Yisro is the example, is the paragon of a person who is constantly changing in his lifetime. So Chazal say Yisro was an Oved Avodah Zarah. The Torah calls him Kohen Midyon. He was the chief of the religion in Midyon, which was Avodah Zarah. And then he's Chosei Moshe. He's Moshe's father-in-law. And then he comes to the Jewish people, and he's so impressed. He becomes a ger. And he adds a parsha to the Torah. He gives them good advice. He tells Moshe, you won't be able to survive if you don't learn how to delegate, which is really the tool of leadership, is to be able to delegate properly. So in this parsha, he's called Chovov, Meloshen Chiba, love, attraction. He's attracted to the Jewish people. He loves them. And because of that, and Moshe's relationship to him, that it's his father-in-law. So Moshe says to him, so we're going. Now Yisro is not the member of any tribe. He doesn't have a flag. He's, so to speak, the outsider. So Moshe feels he has to extend to him a special invitation. Because when the rest of the Jewish people move, they move according to their families and their leadership and their flags. So everybody knows their place. Move at one time. Yisro doesn't belong to anyone. He's a complete outlier. He's on his own. But Moshe values him. He's Chovov. He's someone who has endeared himself to us. He's given us a portion in the Torah. He gives us good advice. He's on our side. We need such people. So Moshe says, come with us. We're traveling. No simanachnu. We're going there to Israel. 12 tribes. It was promised us by our father. So even though you're not a blood descendant, and even though for most of your life you have not been in our society, and in fact, Yisro stood up to Paro when Paro, according to the Medrash, when Paro wanted to persecute the Jewish people, Yisro told him not to do it, and he had to flee for his life. That's how he ended up in Midian. I mean, it's very dangerous to be an expert if your expertise will tell you that the king is wrong. So Moshe is confident that Yisro is on the same page that he is on. Moshe, all of his life, wants to go to Eretz Yisrael. We'll see it later in the Chumash, how he prays to be allowed into Eretz Yisrael. So he can't imagine that a rational, good person would not want to go, would somehow find excuse not to go with them. So he says, but he doesn't have a tribe. He doesn't have, so to speak, the proper passport. So Moshe invites him. Moshe takes it upon himself personally, especially since Moshe is his son-in-law. So Moshe feels a personal responsibility, an attachment to Yisro, over and above what Yisro is to the Jewish people, what he is to Moshe. So Moshe says to him, come with us. Not only come with us, but you'll see, we'll give you honor. You know, you won't be just plain Mr. Yisro. We'll give you a place of honor. You'll be an advisor to us. You'll have an exalted role. You're an important person in our scheme of things. Yisolonu leinoyim, Moshe says. You're going to be our vision. Chazal say Because many times people from the outside see it more clearly than people from the inside. It's true in so many instances in life, and also regarding the Jewish people as a whole. Who sees it? So you will be the one. We're going to see everything through your perspective. That's why you saw your perspective will help us, because we really don't appreciate what we are. We don't appreciate Eretz Yisrael, but if you come, so you will bring with you this appreciation that will change our perspective and give us greater depth and a greater ability to grow. So to speak, Moshe makes him an offer he can't refuse. What could be better than that? He doesn't have to go through the Jewish agency, has to go through Nefesh, but nothing, come. It's all set for you. And Yisro says, no. Ki malami v'lartzi elech. They're not my people. It's not my land. I'm going home. I'm going back to Midian. That's a crushing blow to Moshe. And it's a blow that reverberates throughout Klal Yisrael. Because the Jewish people say, if this is such a great land, and there's such great opportunities, and the Lord is with us there, he can't even get his own father-in-law to go. So it's a weakening of the spirit immediately. It dampens the entire enthusiasm. I remember that I once took my family and we drove to Arizona to see the Grand Canyon. And the Grand Canyon is one of the great natural phenomena in the world. I mean, it's you feel a holiness in the place. It's masa gracious. So we were staying in a motel overnight, and there was another family in the next room in the motel, and they were not Jewish. And I'm a very friendly person to people whom I don't know. And so I said, good morning, how are you? How was the night? I said, we're going out to the canyon, we're going on the hike. What are you going to do today? He says, we're just passing, I'm just passing through, I'm going to Vegas. And I felt that moment deflated. The Grand Canyon is not such a deal because you want to go to Vegas, which is not the Grand Canyon. So that's what happens with Yisro. He's not going. Not only that, he says, I'm not part of you. I like you. I admire what you've accomplished, but I'm not part of it. And that reverberates throughout the Jewish people. So they also say, maybe we should go to Vegas and not to the Grand Canyon. Who says that Eretz Yisrael is so great? You see, he doesn't want to go. Now Rashi puts a positive spin on it. Rashi says he's going back to Midian because he wants to be Makar of them. He wants to convert them. He wants to bring monotheism. So the Bali Musar say that all bad behavior is always covered with good motives. He has good motives. He wants to be Makar of people. But that's not the job right now. The job right now is to go to Eretz Yisrael. The job right now, Moshe tells them, is no simanach. We're traveling now to Eretz Yisrael. And it's ironic that we find that the Yisro's descendants do end up in Eretz Yisrael. In the Shiras Dvorah, and the story of Dvorah and the war with the Yovin Melech Canaan. So Yoel is Eishes Chever HaKeni. It's again one of the names of Yisro, the descendants of Yisro. They do find themselves. And we find later that Shaul HaMelech, when he makes war against Plishtim, he tells everybody that's descended from Yisro to go away so they shouldn't, so to speak, be destroyed in the war. But this is the beginning of the descent. It's a small matter. We could say, what difference does it make whether Yisro goes or doesn't go? But in the small event that the Torah records for us, that Yisro is not willing to go, at the beginning of the descent of the Jewish people, of Arboim Shono Kud Bedor Ve'ein Lo Yodu Drachoi. They didn't get it. They didn't understand what I want. And therefore, this is seen in Chazal as being a very negative thing, because it will lead to worse things and the destruction of that generation in the desert itself. Rabbi Chananya ben Akash Omer Ratzak HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Zakos Es Yisrael U'Viz L'Achir B'Lahem Torah Mitzvot Shenemar Adonai Chafetz Aman Tzidko Yadil Torah Yadil.